I'm Diego Cordovez. Welcome to The Scoop, and we've had Brian Rast on with us for 2 episodes. Talked about his big cash game successes and about tournaments, but this summer he won the 50K Players Championship. He won another bracelet in Parliament Hold'em, and we're going to talk in depth about a lot of the key hands in those tournaments, his game against Phil Hellmuth, heads up, to win the 50K, and tournament philosophy in general. If you missed the first 2 parts, they're on Card Player TV. You ended up heads up with Phil Hellmuth, and he's, of course, his dream is to win another bracelet. That's a life's obsession for him, and he'd been runner-up already twice in earlier World Series tournaments this year. He gets heads up against you, and as I understood it, I mean, the whole crowd atmosphere was pretty intense, because now he has a chance to win the bracelet. It's in the tournament that anyone would want to win on its own merits, much less for your 12th bracelet to really make a story. Well, I mean, what was the whole dynamic like for you? Because usually, even at the final table, you've got your supporters, but it's not that kind of arena atmosphere that he creates.
I'd say that most people were rooting for Phil. You know, he definitely was the crowd favorite. Phil, personally, his dynamic was like, I'd say throughout the final table, he was definitely focused, but he was a little more talkative. You know, he talked with me some. I mean, one time he got frustrated at me, but that kind of blew over. It was a long final table, and you know, he was. Once it got down to like heads up, I don't think we said another word until the tournament was over.
I mean, just based on your personality, it seems that all of the extraneous stuff isn't really going to affect you very much the way it may someone else.
Yeah, I think that, you know, had I made this final table much earlier in my career, although, I mean, at some point I never would have made this particular final table, but I just mean like a final table this big.
Yeah.
Like, let's say, like, you know, the WPT 25K final table or something. I think it might have made me more nervous. You know, at this point, I mean, I did already win a bracelet this summer, although I can't say that final table was that stressful at all. But I've made deep runs in a lot of different tournaments. I've played cash games that are like as big as a lot of these tournaments, and it's just gotten to a point where I feel pretty experienced playing for like a lot of money.
The money pressure is not going to get to you. It's just that you're not used to playing with these distractions. I mean, in the cash game, you don't have a whole crowd that's yelling, and
which is true, but then, you know, there have been other tournament experiences that I've had, and you know, I would say that I did just it probably earlier in my career, when also maybe it was more of like a dream of mine, like, oh, you know, like when I first started playing poker, I got into it, I saw it on TV, like I was a little more motivated by oh dude, it would be great to like play on TV and stuff. Right. But whereas as I kept playing for a while and it kind of became a career rather than just like a hobby that became a passion, that, you know, it kind of like, yeah, like playing on TV would be cool to like share with my family and friends, but, you know, like that went so far down on my list of reasons why I want to, you know, like maybe the money, then the bracelet or whatever, like those, you know, number one. And so if money's probably number one, and if I've already, you know, had wins and losses and comparable whatever, especially over spans of time, then, you know, that pressure goes down a lot. And then, especially because I sold pieces and this and that, it was a big tournament. So, yeah, but I think earlier in my career, I would have been harder for me to keep my cool. But it's been such a long time, and it's one of those things you kind of just train yourself. Maybe not even intentionally, like I'm training myself to like be able to play at a final table, but you just train yourself to like take things with a little bit of equanimity and like calm, and just try to go with the flow, and if things go good or bad, not like get too excited about it either way.
I mean, you made a big comeback. At one point he had you down 6-1 or more, and when you got to the final hand, which I just read about on the internet, he actually had flopped a big draw, which you didn't know, but you'd flopped the nuts straight. And when the hands were turned over, you'd said, "Sorry, Phil, I've got the nuts." And obviously, I mean, you're not sorry in the sense that, of course, you're determined to win, but did you feel some sympathy in the sense that he's trying to achieve his dream, and that he's going to finish with a third runner-up in this World Series. Was there some?
Yeah, it was like a little bit like
sympathy?
that. I mean, I feel like I've now had another deep run with Phil in like a Bay 101 tournament recently, and just talked a little bit with him throughout this tournament. Like on the aside, there were a couple times people were all in. We talked about some hands, and yeah, I just definitely felt a little bit of empathy. I mean, like I bet, and then he just moved all in. It was a second where, if I even remember, I kind of like looked away and said like, wow. Like I just like couldn't believe like I'm have the nuts and someone just moved all in. This is basically what happened to my other bracelet, which is one of the advantages of being kind of an aggressive player, is that sometimes people just have had enough.
Right.
And like when you have it, like you just sometimes get them to give it to you.
But here you're formulating a plan to try to get it all in, and it's all in.
I mean, yeah, I'm sitting there, I'm leading, I'm thinking, well, like, if he's got a hand, I might be able to get 3 streets here or something, and he just moves all in, and I'm just like, okay, well, I guess forget 3 streets, I just got it all right now.
Got it.
So, and then it was just kind of like, well, this is my way of, I'm thinking, well, you're going to lose probably, so sorry, man,
Right. Well, at that point, he might have been drawing slim or dead. As it turns out, he actually did.
Yeah, he had the flush draw, basically. Like, I don't think he can win any other way. He can chop with a king-queen.
Right.
So, he was live.
Mm-hmm.
But, I wasn't thinking about that when I said that.
Mm-hmm.
It was just such a short period of time for me to process.
Right.
And at I have to call, because any longer than what I did becomes a slow roll in some sense.
Sure,
So,
of course.
So, I guess I'm not for sure sorry, because he could suck out on me, in which case I would probably not have felt very good. It was a big hand, so.
I mean, it was a huge hand, huge
Yeah.
tournament, because the 50K really is something that, with all the tournaments now, the vast majority of which will be forgotten, the 50K really does resonate, in history. And
yeah, it's probably the second biggest tournament of the year, probably.
Yeah, and a $1.7 million first prize, even with all the big money in poker now, is still like a special deal. So
Yeah.
the whole package, also the fact that it is a prestigious tournament, very well-known players at the final table, just to come out on top is a big achievement. So
Yeah, personally, it was really cool to have won it. It was really great for me, for my career, for all that good stuff. But it was pretty neat to play Phil Hellmuth heads up too. I mean, it's like the type of situation that's, I mean, when you start playing poker and you think, just like any kid starts playing basketball, like,
Right.
One day maybe I'll play against Michael Jordan. I mean,
if you're going to win the 50K,
he's
to
one of the
beat Phil
people.
heads up.
I mean, I'm
adds
trying
a
to think
lot
if
of
there's
luster.
really anyone that would be more kind of neato to beat heads up. I mean, maybe it's like Phil Ivey, but other than that,
That's about it.
It's like, yeah, it's about it. So he's done so much, and especially for a World Series tournament
Mm-hmm.
where he's won more bracelets than anyone. So,
And No Limit, which is your game, but it's also his game.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah. So I mean, that was really, really special, So, and it was it was a pretty tough heads up match. It was weird. There was probably the most kind of flustered I got, which I don't think I got really that flustered, was at some point during the heads up with him, because he was winning every pot, and I mean, I never really had anything like the whole time. I mean, even like the coverage that happened on TV, like they basically showed 3 hands that I lost. One of them I have kings and lose to A7. That actually a lot of people would have won the tournament right there in his shoes, because I was getting relatively short. I think I was under 4 million, and I opened with kings, and I had basically been raising almost every button.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of a tough spot whether or not he shifts with A7. I'm just deep enough that he's probably thinking he doesn't really get called by worse too often.
Right. It's not automatic. With
And
the
so he didn't, but he could have easily shipped it, in which case I call and he makes it
That's
straight
it.
on the turn.
Yeah.
And then, then there's other hand that I'm really glad when I saw it on TV, because this was the biggest pot that we played that I lost, where there's a pot where I have king 9. He limps the button, I just check, it's king 9 suited. I actually would raise that sometimes. I just decided not to at this spot at this time. It was kind of a game flow decision. I felt like he had a lot of momentum, and I just didn't want to make a big pot out of position right
Right.
Flop came queen 9-6 rainbow. I bet he calls, turns a 3. I bet like 400 into, I don't know, maybe there was like 6 or 7 or something. I don't remember. It's not that important. He makes it 2 million, and I just, like, having played with him all day, this just really felt to me like I felt like his value range was polarized enough that it's like not one pair ever, and then especially with his raise size, and then like I just really thought that he wanted me to fold, which basically means he has to have some kind of straight draw. So I called, and then the river came a jack, and I checked, and he kind of snap bet 3 million, and I like decided that the problem is that, like, most of the straight draws got there, like 8-10, King 10 got there, and Jack 10, even if he's bluffing with it now, has me beat.
If he's semi-bluffing, he can hit a pair.
And I thought that sometimes in this spot he would just give up with like 5-6 or like 6-4, although he might bet them, but he might not snap bet them. So I just, just too much of his range just got there. Yeah. So I and there's always a chance that he did have a set and I made a bad read on the turn. So I thought that I pretty much I think I pretty much have to fold the jack. But I thought about it for a while and folded, and I saw that he had 8-10, so I actually played the hand perfectly. But I was a little, like, after that hand happened, I started to think, well, should I have called? That was like 1.6 more I put in on the turn. It was a lot. And then another hand where he flopped a set that I tried, he double check raised me and I gave up on the turn. So it was just like the type, between those hands there you're talking about, it's like 2.5. The double check raise I lost almost $1 million.
Right.
The other pot I lost like 400 or 500K. You're talking about like 4 million out of the, I think I went from 9 to when I doubled up 2.5. So that's 6.5 million. That's like 2/3, 3/4 of the chips I lost just in 3 pots that are kind of like.
And where you easily could have lost more.
Yeah.
Every single one of those you could have lost more chips.
Yeah. The double check raise one probably not, but the other ones I definitely could have. So, it was the type of thing where I think after the fact, it was like I was just reading on sites about how, like, at the beginning of Heads Up Play, Phil like showed why he's the best no limit hold'em player in the world. I'm like, well, I don't know about that. Like, I really didn't have anything, and I didn't think I played that bad. And I feel a little justified that I can't feel that badly. Like, one of the pots I played perfectly.
You've been vindicated by the TV coverage. So otherwise, the doubt remains in your mind and everyone's mind.
But so it was just one of those things, and I just tried to tell myself during that, like, as I was getting super low on chips, don't, like, try to make something happen. Like, don't go out of your way to try to win some pot right now. Just, like, play good poker, and hopefully the cards will turn around a little bit and something will go your way.
Hang in there until you find the right spot.
And so basically, I mean, the ace-king spot, when it came up, he limped button, and I raised, like, probably decent enough, and I hadn't been doing that much that I figured he put me on, like, generally a pretty good hand. The flop hits 10-4-4 with 2 hearts. I bet, and he shipped it. I mean, I think he almost never he doesn't have a 4 there very often. It's just a little too low to limp call a big bet when we're deep. Although, to be fair, Phil does do goofy stuff sometimes, especially when he's on a run.
But maybe not when he's about to finish you off.
Yeah, I just thought he doesn't have a 4 too often. I also thought there's some chance that he doesn't ship a 4 there. Because I think some of the time he'd think I'm going to fold. So I think he just has a flush draw so often that with ace-king with the king of hearts, I just have to call. I'm getting like 2-1 from the pot. I probably took 5 seconds to call. Like, it's funny. To me, that hand's pretty standard. But I don't know if everyone really thinks that way. So,
but the way, especially given the chip positions,
and I mean, like, there's some
you had to go with at that
like,
point.
and if he, for example, has ace X of hearts, like ace 2 of hearts, then I'm in really good shape. Like, because I don't have the ace of hearts in my hand, so I have the king of hearts. So I don't know. So that hand happened, and luckily I faded that one. I had a really sick feeling I was going to lose that one when that was up, because it's like a coin flip.
Yeah.
And I had been running pretty bad.
But once you win that, then you started.
But once I won that, I got back I had over 5 million, and I just started to feel a lot more confident, and then it just happened really fast after that.
And even for Phil, who has a lot of experience and who actually was very steady emotionally,
Yeah.
when you've got someone all in and you've got a decent amount of equity and they survive and they double up, it's frustrating. I
For
mean,
sure.
You've got them down on the mat and you can just see a card come off to win. Nobody's immune to the frustration of that.
I think just about everyone gets frustrated in that spot.
You have
because
to.
you've been just chipping him down,
Right.
chipping him down, and then you have them all in.
Yep.
And, you know, whatever, it's a coin flip. You just want to win it and be done right there.
Yeah.
And then, you know, especially, I think Phil definitely, I think he respects my poker game. I think he thought I was very tough to play against.
Mhm.
And I think he just kind of had the feeling after I won that pot that's like, kind of, oh shit, like
Right.
now I've got to deal with him with like 5 million chips again.
Now we have to play.
Because, you
Yeah.
know, once he had me down to 2.5, it was basically getting to a point where there just wasn't that much play left.
Yeah, it doesn't
So-
matter how good you are.
Yeah.
You can keep the pressure on.
So I'm sure it kind of was a little annoying to him, and I actually, I don't know, but I think it might have even affected how he played the 10-8 of clubs hand, because I feel like he played that one a little bit unorthodox, and actually out of all of them, that one might, after thinking about it for a while, I think he played that one the worst. Like as the 8 deuce of diamonds
Right.
at the end, even though that's the hand he got it in the worst with me after I called, I actually think that play is relatively better.
Mhm.
Even, I'm not sure if it's the best play he could have made. I think it's relatively better than the 10-8 of clubs.
The second one.
Because he made like kind of a biggish raise on the flop, but like not so big that like basically after I shove, it's like a somewhat marginal call.
And he's not pot committed at that point.
Like against, I have like almost the weakest hand I have, which is like a king with a bad kicker,
Mhm.
which I pretty much decided was good because I don't think he ever has kings or jacks. I think that he, you know, after I raise there, I think that, I don't know if he ships the flop with like king 8, king 9, or king 10. I think he just calls the ways
Right.
that he plays a lot. I think ace king he re-raises pre,
Mhm.
and then king queen he might even do it too. So it's like his range of hands that he's actually repping is like king jack or,
Right.
or like a flush draw.
It's very
So-
uncharacteristic of him too, in the sense that he doesn't like to get it in with, even though he had some fold equity, his game is to try to
Yes.
trap. So it
that
could
was
be
very
related to the
uncharacteristic.
earlier hand where he
I-
lost some amount of patience.
I think so. I think he lost some patience there and just, and like he made his raise big enough that after I reshipped, he was getting like less than 2-1, but I think better than like the 40% equity that he actually had versus my hand.
Right.
So it's like a very marginally against my hand.
It's your hand, but
call.
not against your range.
But the thing is, if I have the nut flush draw there, which I'm always playing that way, or like, I think one of the cards ahead of over his hand was the non-club.
Mhm.
So there's 3 bigger flush draws, one of which is a bigger pair than the 10,
Right.
plus top pair. Plus, I mean, maybe
Plus
I have
2 pairs.
queen 10,
Yeah.
which still has him in bad shape. Oh, it's like flip. It's like a flip. But yeah, I mean, I just think that, and even given the way he played, I actually think that even after he makes it 900 or whatever, it might even be a fold.
Mhm.
Just because, my opinion, and I know Phil subscribes to this actually more than me, because Phil I think sometimes makes even slightly bad folds to like do this. His opinion is like he doesn't want to get it all in and like basically 0 EV type spots
Right.
just to gamble.
Right.
And like I'll definitely in tournaments I will fold unless I have like a massive chip lead.
Mhm.
In which case I'm almost doing it to just say like F you guys, I'm not folding.
Right.
I have so many chips. If you want to ship it, I'll call you and gamble with
Mhm.
you. But like unless you're in that spot, in most tournaments, I don't want to like call with 2 3s, getting like, you know, whatever, some really
Right.
small equity or minus equity from the pot.
And he never has. So.
And he never does that.
No.
And this is a spot where when he's calling with 10 high flush draw, you know, getting like kind of a okay price from the pot, it's like basically that kind of like F you, I'm not folding call.
He knows he has to be behind. I mean, he can't have a.
But you
it's
know,
very
he didn't
unlikely.
really think about it, which is one of the reasons why. So he like raised to like the big raise. I thought about it for a little while and shipped, and like he called me within a couple seconds. So like he had basically already decided to just get this in, and I think like he should have thought about that one a little more, both his raise size on the flop and especially after I shipped it, like whether or not it was a call.
Well, it's also a sign of respect for you because he is always looking for a great spot, a perfect spot, having a big edge on someone.
Yeah.
But he may have recognized the fact that you were a very tough player, you were playing him tough, you'd come back from being low on chips, and that he was prepared to go with a more marginal spot than he normally would.
Yeah.
Which is, respect for you.
Yeah, maybe. I'm not sure. It's possible. I mean, see, my take on it, maybe that's true. Maybe that's true.
Or it's a combination of that and the fact that he had been frustrated on the earlier hand.
Yeah.
Or that he just made up his mind. Sometimes he's thinking, I'm going to raise here and then I'm going to put another barrel. And now you moved in on him, but in his mind he'd already committed to the fact that he was going to be getting his chips in there, even though it's a lot different to be calling than.
See, for me, this is kind of my definition of tilt in poker. And I think most people who think about it would agree with me. Tilting is in that spot after I move all in, not thinking about it for 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Because pre-making up your mind because you're frustrated or whatever is tilt. You're basically tilting.
Or making a rash decision.
Yeah. And I think he's in a spot there with 10 high. He might think about it and decide it's a call, but I think it's close. And I think it deserves some okay, well, I'm going to count the pot. I'm going to see what my exact price is. I'm going to think about what he has. And maybe I'll still call.
To your point, right, if you still call after that, that's different. You've made some assessment. But if you call out of emotion, that's
because, one of the things he has to think about is, am I ever doing this with less, a lower flush draw?
Right.
Because the only way I think he can really get a call there is doing that. That depends on what he thinks about me. The truth is in that spot against him, I'm probably not doing it with the 6-high flush draw. I'm probably folding. He made a big raise that looked like he was committing himself, and I just can't, he has a big flush draw a lot, or has me beat. So I probably would have folded that and just lost my the C bet, But I don't know. If he thinks I have a lower flush draw, then he has to put it in.
Right.
But he should think about that. Is my point. I just think in general, and I've done this too in my career, is I think that's one of the biggest ways I've tilted is gotten to a point where I'm decided I'm not going to think about what I'm doing and just do it. And then after the fact, realize, well, if I had thought about that, I maybe would have made a better decision.
Often the case. Well, it's been a pleasure. And
Yeah.
we got to wrap up, but thanks for talking to us, especially about all those interesting hands. And it's a huge summer to win a Pot Limit Hold'em tournament and then to win the Players' Championship as a follow-up. The only guy who won 2 bracelets this summer and in important tournaments. And not a surprise given your established history winning in cash games, and which will continue. But interesting to hear about all that. Thanks for coming by.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. It was one heck of a ride this summer. So it can probably can't go up from here, but
no.
Just
the thing is, I'm pretty confident you're going to have a very successful, long career if you want. But to have these events in that time period like that, that's pretty good.
It was
run.
special.
It's a pretty good run.
It was special for sure.
Thanks for joining us on The Scoop, brought to you by Card Player TV.